Hi everyone, and welcome to today's session on the art of asking questions presented by the International Association of Coaching Kuala Lumpur chapter. We're so excited to have all of you with us here today. So let's get cracking. Just a couple of session norms before we begin. As this is a forum, we'd really appreciate if you could all keep your mics on mute. It's now been automatically put on mute. And should you have anything you want to express or say, because we'd love to hear from you as well, feel free to do that in the chat box, where we will be looking at the comments from time to time, and I will be directing the questions that you have for the panelists later. All right. And finally, and of course not the least of all the things that we have to do, is to have virtual patience, like what happened with me just now. Slight technical difficulties trying to share my screen. I appreciate the patience that all of you have, and I ask that you carry it on for the rest of the session. All right, and with that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce none other than our moderator for today, Miss Veni Muthusamy. Veni, please take it away.
Thank you, Zubin. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the IAC KL Chapter Forum. As you all know, this is our very first program under this chapter, and we are extremely grateful to the Almighty for giving us this time, platform, and resource to make this possible. I am Veni Muthusamy, your moderator for this session today. And before that, I would like to thank all fellow coaches for allowing us to come into your homes on this weekend, where you should be sparing your precious time with your family to support us in sharing some of the best practices, new trends, ideate, and as well as enhance and spread this coaching culture all over the country and all over the world. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, our objective for our session today will be on sharing experiences, tools, strategies, especially on the art of asking questions. Okay, so in this session, we not only want to hear the successes, but when things did not go well, how was that overcome? And what were the strategies and tools that were used in improving the way the questions were asked? And most importantly, what were the learnings that it has brought all of us, especially the panelists, about the art of asking questions? Okay, so before I proceed, let me just go through the flow of our session today. We are going to begin with a small ice-breaking activity, which will be handled by Zubin. Okay, after that, once we're done with the ice-breaking, we're going to come back to our session, right? And then I'll have a short introduction to our topic, and also before all this, we'll get to know our panelists. We will go in for a short break after our conversation for 2 to 3 minutes. This is about 11:20. We'll have a short break, and then we'll resume with the discussions. And I hope that we will get into the Q&A segment by 11:45, and by 12, we should be able to sum up the whole session for today. So to explore our topic today, just before we step into our ice-breaking, let me introduce you to our panelists. We have 4 panelists today, which is first we have Mr. Tan Ken An, who is, just give me a second. Yes, Mr. Tan Ken An is a real estate trainer and speaker. We have Mr. Teo Hock Lai, who is a talent manager. We have Miss Catherine Marie Fernandez, who is the co-founder and consultant at BusyBuds. And far from up above north, we have Mr. Nyo, who is a design and engineering lead from Penang. So ladies and gentlemen, before we go into the ice-breaking, can I invite the panelists just to give a short intro about yourself. We'll start off with Mr. Tan Ken An.
Hi, good morning, everyone, boys and girls. My name is Ken An. Boys and girls, it's us still young.
Oh, yes,
on the videos. Yeah, anyway, I am from the real estate background. So basically, I've been doing real estate for more than 10 years. I've been in the sales and marketing all this while. And I used to live in Melbourne for a couple of years, about 4 years there. in real estate. So I deal a lot with customers, seller buyers. Even I manage a team of 60 salesperson. So a lot of coaching I do, a lot of training I do. So I'm very passionate in that because I believe in growing talents and letting people to express their talent and go beyond what they are and overcome their fear, overcome their limit. That's what I do to encourage and motivate people to make their life better. So that's how I get into coaching, things like that. So I think this topic today, art of questioning, I think this is very relevant to that. Yeah, back to you, Benny.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Canon. Let's move on to Teo. Teo.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Hi, thank you. All right, my name is Teo Hock Lai. I'm basically a talent manager. I'm currently working with a digital company in PJ. I specialize a lot in talent management. I've been in the talent management line for more than 10 over years. So I'm actually very passionate about learning development, talent management, talent engagement, and anything related to anything that's related to talent.
Okay,
So
how long have you been in coaching, Teo? Sorry to interrupt.
Coaching on a non-official basis, I think it's about more than 5 years plus. I think when you talk about really official coaching, I was just only certified last year. Okay. So I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Teo.
Thank you.
Miss Kathleen Mary Fernandez.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Benny.
Morning.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. So a bit about myself. I start from the very beginning. I grew up in a house with a coach. That being said, that doesn't mean that all conversations in my house are coaching conversations, but I've grown up in an environment where I felt the benefits of being coached growing up. And I've also come from a performing arts background, now into a training, facilitation, and coaching background. And one of the things that I found very similar between the performing arts and coaching and L&D is that we're always exploring what's on the inside to bring out the best as we talk and communicate with people. So that's a little bit about myself, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks, Kathleen. And finally, Mr. Neo, up from Penang. Hi, Neo.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, good. So I am a mechanical engineer by training. I currently lead a team of design and engineering group. I've been in this field for 23 years in various capacities, and a bit on my coaching journey. I would say it started about 3 years back as a coachee, right? Okay. And I got MIM certification for professional coaching last year. Only managed to get the IAC Masteries sometime this year. I also got certified as a HRDF trainer. I have been a trainer in leadership and team development in part of my capacity as a leader. And I started my journey last year. I started volunteering and engaging in some training outside of work. So this is a journey that I like to expand and develop myself, and as a means to give back to society. And I hope I can share my experiences and learn from all the coaches out there.
Sure. Thank you so much. We are looking forward to hear from all our panelists. But before that, ladies and gentlemen, let's start kicking with our ice-breaking session. Over to you, Zubin.
Thank you, Benny. Thank you so much. Okay, so kicking it back to our ice-breaking session. Everyone, it's time to get to know a little bit more about each other. So in just 4 minutes, we're going to actually break out into separate rooms where we'll have an opportunity to connect with some of the other audience members here today. Understand a little bit more about each other. So what I would appreciate you would try to do in this next 4 minutes is take the time to introduce yourself, share a bit of your background, where you're from, where you work, and finally, this is a very interesting question we can all share with each other. What is the best advice you've been given recently? All right, so introduce yourself, share your background, and what is the best advice you've been given recently? And with that, I'm going to ask Captain Shan to help me redirect everyone to their breakout rooms.
Okay, is everybody in?
I think we have 38 participants back in so far. Few more filing in. Okay, yeah, I think we're good. So
All right. Okay.
thank you everybody for that session. I hope you got to get to know someone new. In some cases, you
Yes.
might have seen a few familiar faces. That's fine too.
Yes.
Get to know them a little more. I hope you also learned a lot from the advices shared. And sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I realized taking it for granted that people know that I'm the Zubin everyone is referring to. So my name is Isabel Zubin Shah. Most people call me Zubin, and I am one of the coordinators for the event. You probably would have seen all my emails sent out to you. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for letting me share this icebreaker with you. And now let's get straight into the meat of the session and take it away, Vinny.
Thanks, Zubin. Okay, fellow coaches, those who joined us late, welcome to our first IACKL forum. And our forum today is the art of asking.
Vinny, we're not able to hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Post and okay, somebody muted me. Okay, anyway, now once again, I was just saying welcome to all our new participants who just joined us to our first KL IAC forum. And the topic for our forum today is the art of asking questions. Now, I think when you are on the net, you would have seen this advertisement where they said we are in very strange times at the moment. Now, however, for me, I think we are in the most valuable phase in the evolution of the world. Not only the world around us is changing, but ladies and gentlemen, the world within us also has to change. Now, this is the time for us to sharpen our saw so that we are back to the new normal that we're going to step in, so that we can use these enhanced skills and knowledge to serve our clients better, and most importantly, to contribute towards our nation, family, and the world at large. Now, I'd like to kick off our session for today by a quote by Ken Coleman, who was an American sports broadcaster. He said, "Good questions inform. Great questions transform." So, since all of us are in the business of transforming people, the topic of our forum today is the art of asking questions. And we have 4 people here who is going to share their experiences and also ideas and, what were the strategies and, that they had. Now, why we took this topic was because I purchased a book about a couple of months ago, which was filled with numerous questions from all aspects of life: career, self-development, relationship, health. So it hit on us while we were having a conversation with the team in IACKL that why not? Because this is one of the core skills we as coaches need to possess. And it is something I'm sure all of us, at least I, struggled in the beginning. How do we ask good questions? So how do we ask proper questions? Okay, even sometimes now we still have the same struggle. So hence, we thought this will be a good topic. And so we have invited our 4 panelists today. And I would like to begin the question first. Now, what has made asking questions generally such a struggle? What is it that's difficult as a coach for us to ask questions? Now, I'd like to open this question to all our 4 panelists. Anyone would like to respond first on this?
Hi, Mimi. Neil here.
Hi, Neil. Yes, please.
Yeah, I like to share my challenges. As I shared just now, fairly new to this. So the common theme that when we were going through the certification, I guess we want to do a good job as a coach. Right? We really want to help our coaches. And in the process, sometimes we are so overly worried about what questions to ask that we are no longer focused on the coaching process itself. Right? So instead of listening, we are thinking in our head. So we are not fully in focus. We're not there for the coaches. That's one aspect of it that I can see. Right. Then personally, for my own experience. So it depends on your personality and job nature, right? So imagine if you're working at an info center, people call you up and you give answers. Right? You will give answers. You don't ask questions. Right? So engineers, we are being asked to give solutions. So rather than ask questions, it's natural that you ask, you give answers rather than ask questions. So that's some of the challenges. So one way of overcoming is, if we are aware of this, then being more aware during conversations and communication, we need to trigger ourselves and switch into a different mode. So that's one way I think that can help. If we know we have this problem, have this awareness and try to reflect and have kind of a pause in our communication to trigger yourself to switch into the questioning mode. That's what I have to share. Thank you.
You actually use the pause before you actually respond, and then that was good. Anybody else? Teo or Canon, do you have any experiences? Why is it asking a question can be such a struggle sometimes?
Can I share if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure, please, Teo.
Okay. Basically, I think one of the attributed factor is also due to the way how our culture is actually being built up. Because when we are very small at that time, basically a lot of times that the adults or your seniors will tell you what you need to do, how you should go about it. They actually instruct you. So when you go to the universities, you're also becoming more like a feeder. Sorry, school, then universities, you're also becoming more like a feeder. You receive information, you memorize the information, and using your memory, you pass the exam. So when you go to work that time, because I'm also involved in a lot of interviews, I've interviewed 100 SOA people a year. So I can see that when I interview them or when I speak to them, they're actually memorizing the answers they found from the internet. But they also do not realize that I also do research on internet to understand how they are going to do the interview. So I know the answer is that they memorize it. So one of the breakthrough way that I usually do at work is that I try to re-educate them. I told them, don't keep on memorizing answers, because you cannot memorize your own career out of it. You need to re-educate yourself, ask the right questions in a very ethical and proper manner to your seniors. So I think this is some of my key pointer is to re-educate them again.
Can you share an experience, Teo, where you asked a question and they gave the standardized answer? Did you counter them with reframing the question, or
Okay, thanks Ronnie. All right. One of the standard questions I might ask during the interview is that can you share a little bit about yourself? So some of the internet will start to talk about to share about their success in the universities. Some of them will share, the more truthful ones will share about their journey throughout their life. But honestly, this is not what we are looking for. We are looking more towards to what can you do in your previous career or in your previous education that you think it is very beneficial to the company right now. So I rephrase them the question. So if you were me in my position right now and asking, and you've been asked this question, what is the objective that you think that I'm asking you this question?
Okay, all right. So you reframe the whole intention of the question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, Kenan.
Okay, I just want to add on from my view, because I deal a lot with clients, customers. So I think one of the challenge that we face during questioning is, number one is, I realize that some people do not understand or do not know what is the purpose and objective of the meeting. So your questions could be all over the place without obtaining achieving the objective of the purpose of the meeting. So that could be one challenge, is that some people don't prepare. Like I think like what Pio mentioned, some people are not prepared, but they go there with memorizing things like that. Then the other challenge is, I realize is, it depends on the relationship between you and the other party. If they are dealing with a stranger, the challenge in terms of questioning is the trust right? One of the mastery is building trust. When the relationship there, the trust is not there. Sometimes like what I think Neo mentioned is that the answer may come back not in a sense, it's not genuine, or you can feel that there's something not right in the question. I mean, in the answer when we question. And sometimes the challenge is that when we realize that sometimes the answer is not right, we tend to interrupt, we tend to correct them, we tend to like giving them answer instead of continuing to further understand. So I think one of the challenges is this, that sometimes we as the person who asks the question, we can't resist. We know that there's something wrong. We just want to interrupt and correct them, or we just want to interrupt and give them the answer instead of probing deeper. So I think that is the challenge that I feel, in the sense, especially when we deal with clients. Sometimes we know that it's not right. We know that something is not right. We tend to step in and take over the conversation. So that could be one challenge. Of course, just to add on one more point, is that one of the challenges that I face is sometimes the silence. You ask the question, the fella don't answer you back, and you just get stuck. What are you supposed to do next? So that could be another challenge. So it really depends on the relationship. Yeah, that's how I look at it.
All right. So you need to be very conscious and aware that when you're asking a question, the intention of the question is not about answering your agenda. You need to keep focus on the coach's agenda.
Correct.
And sometimes the way you frame and ask the question, probably they have not understood the question, or they do not know how to write. So you need to. So what are some of the tips that you do as a preparation, as a coach? Let's say, like for today, I've prepared a set of questions, maybe 10 questions, 15 questions. But at the third question, when I ask people, there is silence. So what are some of the things that you do to prepare yourself when you go into a coaching session? Of course, we were told by the masteries to be present, to listen and all that. But do you do any prior, what do you call it? Do you list a set of questions?
Yep. So if I do coaching, what I do is normally a day or two before, I'll probably get the coachee to fill up some questions, right? Sometimes I give them some questions, email them or text them, fill up a little bit of simple questions to get them to know a little bit. Then what I'll do is normally the day before or before a session, I'll do a little bit of preparation. What are the questions that I'm going to structure? And I sometimes I try to, I'm not trying to say that I want to put into my agenda. I try to anticipate what they are going to answer. So I know if they answer yes, what is my next question? If they answer no, what is my next question? So I actually prepare and I actually anticipate what is going to happen so that I won't get stuck. So preparation is very important, if you ask me.
All right.
Sometimes you meet a client, you know what is your objective, you know what you want to achieve at the end of the day. So you structure a question that leads to the answer, leads to the, not to say the answer, the objective. That's what I'll do.
All right. Kathy, I would like to ask you, there's a lot of struggle, in quietening the mind, because the mind is always chattering, So what are some of the things that you do to quieten the mind so that you can actually be focused in asking the right questions?
Yeah, I think that was my biggest struggles when I started off as a coach. And what really helped me was to sit down with myself and to reframe my mind. And what I mean by that was, it's not about me, and it's about them. And it's not just about the agenda or the questioning, but the whole session, everything that I'm going there for, the purpose of meeting them, the purpose of having the conversation is about them. And so that, I think, freed up a lot of tension and panic within me that, oh my God, I have to ask the right questions, blah, blah, blah. So that helped to take away that, worry and that panic. Another thing that I feel really helped was I, in nature, have learned to become a listener. But just because I listen generally doesn't mean that my mind is not working constantly. So externally, I may be seeming as a listener, but internally, there was always a lot of, things arising and questions and making sense of it. And when I did enter the coaching class with Captain, I think learning to be present above all the preparation, above anything else, was what really helped me, because I think by the third or fourth time I started getting into a coaching session, I understood the power of just being present. And then that freed up my note-taking or my questions prepared. Of course, understanding the flow or the direction using the GROW model and things like that, but not worrying so much about what's the next question I'm going to ask. If a question arose, I just wrote it down. But by the time I would ask a question, maybe that question would have completely changed. So it helped that I wrote it down so that I just got it out of my mind, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to ask that question.
Right. Because when we were going through the coaching training itself, because when you meet your coachee, if you know their problems, then the tendency for you to ask what are the questions I'm going to ask is there. But you might be meeting somebody totally new. You don't even know what they're going to discuss for that day. And that is where I feel the struggle comes, because we don't even know, because we're going to ask, what do you like to discuss today? So in those kind of situations, what I'm asking is more of preparation. What do you do as a coach yourself? See, whatever that we've got now, listing the questions and all, is more of preparing. It's becoming coachee focus in the sense, okay, these are the questions I'm going to ask, because it looks like we are trying to direct them into getting an answer. But we all know that sometimes the coaching conversation does not lead to any answer. Does nothing. It's just for them to download perhaps. So what we are more keen to know, what are the things that we can do as coaches to ourselves to free this mind? And is there any strategy of asking questions? That means I'll ask a very general question, then I'll do questions which funnel down to the issues. Or is there any particular process or framework that you all follow in asking questions? This is open to any one of the four panelists to answer. Is there a particular model, or is there a particular flow, or is just totally just being in the present? What pops up in my mind, that's what I'm going to ask.
Can I share something?
Please. Yes,
please. Thank you, Bernie. All right. Basically, there are two scenarios when I coach my employees or my staff. If I know their situation beforehand, which means to say I really don't know the goal. So I do use certain models. One of the models that I heavily use is the growth model, GROWTH.
Okay, yes, okay.
Growth model. But I also encounter certain situations whereby the coachee, they do not have any idea where they are at. So being a professional, a corporate coach, I have to be very, very careful, because it can also lead to career counseling, which as professional coach that we are not supposed to touch on. So I do very, very much agree with Catherine, because I need to be very, very present at the moment, at the situation and the scenario, because I need to know what is their objective, and then I need to understand what is the scenario. If their scenario is that of a totally different things, then I will be asking a lot of clarifying questions that can actually lead them back into the present moment and to get what they're actually looking for. So this is some of my pointers now. Thank you, Ernie.
Okay, thanks, Joe. See, I was just reading an article late last night about Oprah, and they were saying, one of the greatness about Oprah is the greatness of the questions that she asks, and she says asking good question is actually a challenge, because it requires a shift in the mindset, in our mindset, in the coach's mindset, So where there is this innate, tendency, by asking a question, we sometimes want to show superiority, okay? Or we want to control the outcomes. Like we say, it's no more their coach's agenda, but it becomes the coach's agenda. Or, the need for perfection, to look like, I asked the perfect question, therefore, I've nailed you here. Now, has this situation happened to you? And have you asked a good question, and you what was the consequences of asking like a point on the dot kind of a question? What were some of the reactions that you saw from your coachees? Because sometimes the questions that we ask actually send people in a loop and they don't know. But has there been any situation where you have asked like to the point question? What were some of the reactions or experience that you saw from your coachee?
Avani,
Would you
Neo
like to
here.
answer? Yeah, Neo, please.
Can I just touch a bit on the previous question and then go into the one that
Sure.
you just asked? I think
Okay.
one thing is curiosity. I mean, how do we ask questions? It's very dynamic, like some of you said, and I think Grow is a great model. So curiosity, how does that work, right? So for me is how to translate that into action. As a coach means my objective going to the coaching, having that curiosity means I really want to understand, ask questions that help me understand the situation of the coachee, help me have better clarity. So when you put that as your objective, being curious as you go in a coaching session, and being completely open, you have, of course, the tools, different questions in hand, it will be helpful, but go in with that in mind. So going to your next point, I guess experience of asking a question that really have the impact on the coachee. It may not be a complicated question or like you said, a question that shows that you're so good or smart. It could be really a simple question. Right. So what do you learn from all this, right? And for me, it's my personal experience. Even as a coachee, when I was asked, I got stumped. I didn't know how to answer because I went through the whole process, doing work, getting busy, but what's the learning behind, right? You didn't think about it, and it's important to reflect and on your learnings. Then you can improve further on. So that's, I think, helpful for the coachee when you're able to So I can't say a specific question. It depends on the situation, the timing. Asking that question, that kind of get the coachee to really reflect about it, right? Okay. Even they're lost for words is a good sign, because it means that suddenly they're thinking, could be an aha moment. They may not have the answer, but it doesn't matter. But it's triggering something inside their head. Okay, all right. Okay, good. Okay, talking about that, I know that you were involved in training the deaf people in Penang, right? You were involved in the project in training deaf people to be coaches. Now, please share some experience. How did you teach them this art of questioning? How did you do it? How did you manage to do this? Don't mind me, I want to give a shout out to Captain Andy Lepin, who are here, and we also got support from a coach from Singapore in this whole process. So thank you very much for all the support we got. We couldn't have done it without you. So it was very challenging. It was I was one of the trainers. It was one of my first coaching trainings. So we all know the four tools of coaching, and they are not able to use listening. Right. So what they are using is sign language, and on top of that, for us, since we speak to them, they can read our lips. So I'm not going through the process that they go through, so I cannot really have a full understanding. But I am pretty sure it's very challenging to be, looking at the hand signals and trying to look for the non-verbal clues from when they communicate. So it is, I think, a more complicated process that they have to go through during the questioning. So one thing that I remember is, as we started the session, Captain Chan was asking them, about how we want to conduct the classes, and I still remember that, they told us, please do the class as normal, right? They can feel the energy. It's not like because they can't hear, they cannot feel. So they asked that we do as normal, and that made us more motivated and try to make the sessions more energy, feel more energy when we speak, so that they can feel it as well, right? Yeah, so those are some of the things. Okay. All right.
I think if I can just add to Neo quickly, Vinny, I think because I've had interactions with the deaf as well growing up, and I think they have a bigger advantage because they're not listening to the words. They really have to rely on their hearts to sense what the person is, saying or not saying. And I think they have a greater advantage because they're not distracted by the words. And as we know, communication is only 7% is our words. 97% is our tone and our body language. So of course the hearing part is not there, but their sensing is, I believe they might even be better coaches than us hearing coaches.
Okay, all right, thank you. Now there's there are some do's and don'ts when we ask questions, right? And one of the biggest challenges is they tell us don't ask the why question and no leading questions. Now, how far is this true? Please share your experiences where you felt there were some situations that you absolutely needed to ask the why question, and when it's absolutely justified, and when leading questions can be accepted. Can you all please share your experiences on that?
Vernie, if you don't mind, can I share?
Yes, please do. Please do.
Okay, thank you. For me, sometimes I do ask why questions and
Okay.
leading questions. But usually it depends on the situation that I'm in, because especially like what Kenan has mentioned earlier on, sometimes the coachee, they don't actually talk a lot. They don't give a lot of inputs. When you ask them something, please elaborate more, they will just elaborate in one word. And then sometimes they just keep quiet around throughout the whole entire sessions. So like both of us are not getting anywhere. So I've got no choice, and I've got no other tactics but to ask them a direct questions. And ask them, have you taken your lunch today? Oh, that's good. Why have you taken your lunch? What are you going to eat later on? So it breaks away from the flow, and that it helps me to transition to the next flow easier. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, sometimes it's justified. Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
I think sorry, Kian, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think as much as we don't ask why questions a lot of the times, I think we've figured out a way to reframe the why questions to say what or when or things like that. So I understand, and I personally, if someone asks me why, I also get that internal frustration of, oh my God, this person is pinning me down. So I understand the reason of why we don't ask why questions as much. But I think your question was, when is a time to ask? And I think it's really once you've gone through that flow and they come to an understanding of, this is what I want to achieve, asking them a simple question of, why is this so important to you? And I've asked this question once or twice, and I think that helps them to ground what their agenda is and what their goal is. And it helps to redirect them to, oh, actually, is this important to me, or is there something more important to me that I would rather focus on? So that's when I found that the why question was the most powerful, aside from other times. Yeah.
Okay, Kenan.
Yeah, I just want to add on to what Theo has mentioned. So I think a leading questions to me, when I apply it, usually is where when I need to seek assurance or confirmation. Sometimes you need to ask. You need
You lose Kenan?
Yeah, we lost Kenan. I wonder what happened. Okay.
He's still in Zoom.
Kenan, we lost you for a bit.
Yeah, I was saying that, sorry, we need to paraphrase sometimes just to get assurance from them, just to ask them to seek assurance. Or sometimes I will just also reinforce what they say. Sometimes I'll ask them, do you think, like Kathy just mentioned, do you think this is important for you? So make them, reinforce them to think a little bit, to dig a little bit deeper. So sometimes I will do that to actually expand their what they call capabilities or options, things like that. So leading questions sometimes can just to me basically is to seek assurance, because sometimes what you said, the conversation just don't go anywhere, and sometimes they will lead you to another twilight zone, that things like that, and you just want to bring back a conversation back to the present. Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me go on and ask this question. As we all, I think we did share a bit in the beginning that, especially Theo, that you told, how we are just feeders from, there's a culture that we are brought up with. I think it's mainly in Asia, okay? The culture is not to ask so many questions, but come up with the solutions. Even when we go for meetings, they want us to give solutions. Now, I want you all to share with us, what are some of the things that we can do to create this culture of questioning? Especially, we have to start at home and with the young. So can you all share what are some of the things that we can do to actually enhance or create this culture of questioning in our society now? Would like to go on this? No?
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
I think to create the culture, first of all, why people hesitate, I think Theo did mention about the way we are being taught in schools and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Even as coaches, we sometimes worry about how our question will sound like. Oh, there's many factors into it. For me, is how do we create a safe space to build that culture? To answer that is, how do we create a safe space? How do we encourage? So for the young, especially even with kids, so I have to give a disclaimer. I'm not really good at this with my kids as well. Sometimes, especially now when we're working from home, seriously,
Yeah.
I'm in calls most of the day, and when your kids come up to you, you can't give them the time sometimes, and you kind of brush them off. I will admit that. Right. So
Yes. I'm sure a lot of you are going through that.
We can make time when we make time for them, right? For me, is when we make time for them. That's the part that we build up this. So, for example, I try to spend time, after meals walking. Then I pull my kids. Or more like forcing them to walk after meals. Then you talk with them, right? When they ask questions, I guess first thing is when they ask questions, you give attention, right? Even they ask questions, you're not engaged and not listening, looking at them. So it doesn't encourage them, right? So that's the first one. Then second one, you yourself ask questions back to them. So this back and forth, these conversations that we have, we use questions as part of the conversation. I think that will drive. And going to work also in a work environment, the same thing, we encourage people. And sometimes, okay, depends on the situation. When we have the time, we do that. Yeah? I like to ask back to my team, what do you think about this? I like to hear their thoughts on it. And when you ask, same thing like with your kids, is make sure that you listen. When you ask the question, you listen to, you ask people for that, you listen to them and give attention. Yeah. You have to acknowledge, not necessarily you have to follow what they say. As a leader, sometimes we have to decide. But when you give that kind of situation, you will encourage people because they know they're being heard. Yeah. Then they are more willing to open up. So that's what I have to share.
Yeah, creating the safe space and acknowledging the fact that they asked question and not getting penalized for asking questions. That's what I'm saying. Anybody else have any other thoughts, especially in creating this culture of questioning? When even we go for talks or seminars, when they open up for Q&A, there's a lot of silence in Malaysia. So what can we do?
I think I would really like to appreciate Neil's answer, because that is brilliant. Creating that culture starts from acknowledging and encouraging, and that creates a space where they feel empowered to ask questions, and that it's not wrong to ask a question, or even to share their thoughts is not wrong. And I think in going towards, especially in the workspace, and I was just thinking about this earlier, a lot of times when you open the floor for questions, it's crickets or it's silence. I think what has helped is first asking them, which parts of this did you like, or what was it that you took away most from? So getting them to be in a mindset of, okay, I'm coming back into the conversation, I'm coming back into the topic. I'm not just an observer, but I have a space to share what I thought. And then once they start sharing what they thought or what they liked or what they didn't like, then asking, oh, do you have any, would you like to know anything more about it? Is there anything I can help in answering if there's something that's not clear for you? And I feel that especially and I've worked with university students as well. So getting them to start having a voice by asking them what they like or dislike and then leading it into a question helps to ease them into that process a bit more.
Okay, all right. The thing is, I think most of the time people don't feel safe to ask questions because, they when they go up and they ask and some people are making a comment, this is like, isn't it an obvious thing? Why is this person asking question? So creating the safe space. Now with technology, I think we've got so many ways of asking questions without being identified. People don't want to be identified, but they want to get clarification or they're curious. So probably even at home, we don't need to know who asked the question, but some questions are important. Probably we can create a box and just say if you have any other questions, especially when, mom or dad, I'm working, I don't want you to disturb, just drop in your questions into the box and we will answer. And it doesn't matter who asked the question, So probably that's one way of encouraging even at home. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, I think we can go in for a short break. Let's take a 3 minutes break. Okay, those who need to go and ease yourself or just, flex yourself for a bit. 5 minutes. Okay, we'll do a 5 minutes break. And so after 5 minutes, we will be back in here to continue and get into our Q&A at 11:45. All right. So thank you. We'll see you back in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We will carry on with our section, the following segment. All right. We have more questions to ask. Okay. Now, to the panelists. Now, as we know, the thing about the art of asking question is we cannot run away from the fact that we have to use the 9 masteries in helping us ask questions. Now, I would like to invite any one of you to share what are some of the main masteries that you use from the IAC masteries when you are asking questions. What are some of the masteries that you usually use? So is anyone up to share?
Can I start first if you don't mind?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Usually I'll use the first masteries, establishing a good level of trust with the coachee first, because I believe that is the most important factor. Because if the coachee, they don't feel that they are in a very trusted situation and they're not being judged, or they don't feel that they're being blamed, they won't be able to share and talk more further. So I believe creating a very good environment or the ecosystem is the most important factor.
All right.
Thank you.
Masteries. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, Benny, I just want to add on. I think when we ask questions, there are a couple of masteries I think is very relevant. Is like what you mentioned. Trust is one thing, right? Because the trust somehow determine their answer. Because if their answer is not clear, then it's very hard for us to understand what is their intention, what is their goal. Then if the trust is there, I think engaged listening is also as important, because you want to pick up the important points. You want to pick up the important key message from the answer. Then of course, once you pick up the points, you need to clarify as well. That's why you need to ask sometimes a leading question. You clarify, is this what I understand? You paraphrase. Then your intention, that means your what you call, it comes back to your next what you call mastery, which is helping the client to keep clear of their intentions. So I think these are very important. The trust, engaged listening to pick up their important points, clarifying, is this what, paraphrasing, is this what you mean? And then you help them to keep their intention clear. So I think these are some masteries that fundamentally I think is common sensely is very important to make sure that the whole session is fruitful and it meets the objective of the meeting. Because the most frustrating part is you don't want to end the session without not knowing what have been achieved. You can't summarize the thing, because sometimes I came across some sessions after 45 minutes, I can't summarize the whole thing. It's just like, you know, you're just turning round and round like merry-go-round. So that is very unproductive, if you ask me. Yeah.
But yeah. Anybody else want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think Kathy here. I think the three masteries that really helped me and guide me is staying in the present, clarifying, which was one of the biggest things for me to learn, was to ask more clarifying questions. But I really see the value of asking clarifying questions. And I think expanding possibilities. So some of the biggest questions that have really helped me in my coaching sessions are simply asking what's next, or what else, what can you do before that, or what would you try differently, what would you try if you were to do something new in the situation. So those the clarifying and the expanding, those questions really work together to get the client thinking about, what else, or what would I have to do before that, what would I have to do after that. And so it creates a 360 view for them in terms of what they need to do. So those are some of the questions, and those are the masteries that help them the most.
Okay, all right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is for our participants. Just to remind you that you may use the interactive notes that the team has prepared for you all, where we have, interactive note, and also with some quotes, and also some resource links that you can refer to about the art of asking question. So you just have to click on the link that we had already sent you via email yesterday. Okay, all right. Now, moving ahead. Now, let's see. Would any one of you like to share an experience where you asked a question and it didn't go well? You know, so this is what you would say, that this is not something that you should ask. What not to ask? Is there any type of question or any, genre of questions that you should never ask? Is there any piece of advice that you would like to give to coaches? Like, no, these are questions that you want to keep away from.
Hi, Bernie.
Yes.
Okay. Usually I don't ask questions related to politics, and also related to gender bias lah, and racial basis lah. So usually I'll stay away from these three questions, even though when I do coaching in my organization. So I will not talk about this topic at all. This is my definitely a no factor.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think that's a very tricky question, actually, because and I don't know. I don't know if there are any questions, and I agree with Theo in the sense of steering away from religion, sex, and gender, and all of those things. But I also feel that, and I may be wrong. I don't know, because I'm still in my journey of growing as a coach. So maybe I will stumble upon some questions that I finally realized, like, never ask these questions. But as for now, my belief is that there are questions that work for some people, and there are questions that don't work for other people. So just because I think that the question might be great and it worked on someone else, when I think that, oh, that was wonderful, I can try asking this other person this question, it might not work for them, because that's not what they need. So I think more than the question itself, it's about, what are my intentions with the question? So that for me has been the biggest. And more than that also is in terms of when I get an answer from the client that I thought, hey, this is a good question to help them center and be grounded and look forward. And, let's say on a scaling question of, where do you think you are on a scale of 1 to 10? And then say, oh, I'm on a 9. And then it's like, where do I go from there? What do you mean you're on an 9? So not being so worried about what the answer is going to be, but what next? So asking them even, what's helped you come to a 9? And what would you do differently to get you to the 10? Because maybe the gap from the 9 to a 10 might be higher. So not being so worried about what the answer is going to be, yeah, just flowing with it.
Yeah, flowing with it. Anybody else?
Hi, Mami.
Yes,
Neo.
Neo. Yes.
Add on to what Katie said, some questions you can ask depending on the situation. So I like to give one example like why. We ask people why you do that.
Mm.
So it could be very judging when you ask that. So we
Mm.
have to be careful on the context when we use it. I'm not saying we cannot use, but if it's a sensitive situation, the coach is kind of putting blame on oneself, right? So when you ask that, it's not productive. It could turn into a negative situation. Maybe then not what questions, but I'm not sure this is related. Rambling questions. You put too many things, trying to put too many things inside the same question. I have the experience. The coachee was confused. They asked me back. I don't understand.
Your questions themselves are confusing.
They were completely lost with my question.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing that I can share in terms of.
So you need to be careful with that.
Yeah.
All right.
I just want to add on
Yes,
to
Kenan.
Neo. Yeah, because
Yes.
this, besides of us trying to avoid the sensitive questions, I think one of the no is this happened to me is that sometimes we as a coach, we ask like something, what Neo said, we sometimes ask what they call a repeat question. That means when you ask a question, the coachee responded you. For some reason, after a few minutes, you ask back the same question. Then the coachee will feel that, I thought I already answered you. How come you still ask me again? So it gives a sense that you are not paying attention to him. You feel that, I already told you why you still ask me the same question again. So that could actually give a rather negative impact on the session, because the coachee thinks that you are not focusing on them, you are not paying attention. Why are you keep asking things that I already know? So that is one no lah. This that we are not focusing, we are not really paying attention. So I think that also give the coachee a bit of insecurity or things like that. So I think it's very important we listen to them, pick up the main points, and don't repeat the questions so that they feel it's like you're not paying attention or you're asking too many questions, things like that.
Okay, so deep level listening and also being in the present is very important.
Yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've got about 3 to 4 minutes before we go into our question and answers from the floor. Now, I like to kind of wrap up our questioning here. Now, I'm going to go through each and every one. I'll start off with Kathy. Now, share with me what are some of the things that you would give as tips to coaches, 2 to 3 points. How can we ask better questions?
And I think I'll share from my experience. What has really helped me is, again, what I shared in the earlier part, reframing our own minds, and doing that inner work of saying, I'm here for this person's purpose. That I feel is the biggest step that's going to help any one of us. And entering that coaching conversation, being completely open, not panicking, and available for that person. Second thing that I would say is, it is a practice. It is, you'll eventually get better at it, to be in the present. And thirdly is not to judge ourselves, because I judge myself quite a bit, to be honest. So, even in my asking of the questions, if I do turn into, I've asked a question and I start to judge myself, I'm taking myself away from that person in that moment. So do the reflection and your feedback for yourself after the session. But while you're in the session, give yourself that permission to fail, to make a blunder, and to recover and to be there for that person. Yeah.
Okay, Kenan, what will be your tips be?
Okay, first thing first is I think if you need to have a good if you want to have a good questioning skill, I think number one is listening. Is equally important, because you want to know what is in his mind, what you want to move on next. Engaged listening is equally important. The second thing is preparation. Now, preparation doesn't mean that you prepare the questions. You don't really prepare. I think someone mentioned in a group, I think Sundar mentioned that you don't actually prepare the question, but the questions should flow according to the session. But
Right.
my preparation means is that you must know the expectation of the whole session. You need to set the scene. You need to set the scene expectation so that you are prepared in that sense. Not to say you prepare question or things like that. So you have to be prepared that the scene, what is going to happen, things like that, so that you won't get stuck, you won't get lost. Sometimes, like what Theo said, if what happened if it's just a silent and you're stuck, he's stuck, he's not going anywhere. So you need to prepare the scene, a little bit preparation. It could be things like what I usually do is one day before the coaching session, I will give the coachee 2 or 3 questions to ask them, what do you expect tomorrow? What do you want to do tomorrow? Something like that. So I know what they want on rather than I at the beginning of the session, I try to ask things that they are not so relevant. So I try to prepare in that manner. So I think it's very important. And the coachee feel appreciated. They feel that you are really there to care for him. You're not there just, I see you. No, you are like telling them that I'm looking forward to meet you tomorrow. We want to achieve something tomorrow. Let's make it happen. Then they will feel appreciated and they will engage with you better. That's how that's what I do.
All right. Thanks, Kenan. Theo?
For me, personally speaking, all right. I think that to have a good framework in mind and your familiarity with a framework, which I shared earlier on, the growth framework, is one of the very good point, because it actually helps to structure your coaching session. You also structure your way of thinking, and I believe that it also will lead to what Kiana has mentioned. You create some form of a story that at least both of us we don't feel lost at certain point of time, because at least there is a road or a signboard that leads me to the next phase. So I think framework is very, very important. That's my first point. The other one is that I believe a trust factor between the trusting factor between the coach and the coachee and the environment is also playing a very, very important role. Because even though if I have a good framework, but the coachee do not trust me, then there's no point, because there's no level of trust between each other. He can't share whatever that he has concerns, and then maybe I won't be able to get more information from him or her. So I think the second pointer should be more on the trust factor. And then the third factor is that I believe so, based on my own opinion, is that it's always to never stop learning, because I understand that being a coach that we cannot be a master in all topics. So there are points that that we have to learn and relearn everything. Actually, as a matter of fact, I kind of like Kian's idea, because he gives the coach something beforehand in order to get the question out. So I think the third factor should be more on relearning things that you do not know.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And Neil, what would your tips be?
I was going to say the guys have covered it all. Yeah, so for me is when we ask questions, how do we make the coachee reflect and think? So I like to put it in that way. Yeah, that's the question. How can we do it in such a way that pushes the coachee to reflect and think? So I try to break down to 3 elements. So when we ask questions, first of all, the action itself. Focus on the action, the thought process, and the emotions involved, right? So in a way, I want the questions, like when we ask this, we pull the coachee out and they're like looking at themselves as a third party, reflecting on the situation. So by asking, so what did you do? What actions do you take in that situation? Then next, on the physical, we go into what was going through your mind as you were doing this, right? So the third one would be, what were your feelings like? What do you feel as you were doing this? So going through these 2, 3, I think it can help trigger them to the reflecting process.
Right.
In the coaching.
So it's out from that whole process. You ask them to reflect. What did the whole process feel like, and what? Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Now we go on to our final segment, which is the Q&A. So Zubin, what are the questions? Do we have any questions that we have for the panelists?
I would actually advise maybe to give about 1 minute of time,
Okay.
so all the audience members can think about a question that they want to ask, and please channel it into the chat box, and I will help direct it to the moderator and panelists.
All right. Okay, so while we are waiting for that, let me just sum up whatever that we heard so far from our session from our panelists. First, we heard that quieting the mind, pausing. Practicing the silence within yourself is very important when you frame questions, and asking questions. The intention of the question is also important. The intention always has to be focused on the coach's agenda. Okay, using a framework or a model, like how Theo said, the GROW framework. So using a framework or a model to ask your questions and lead the session will be good. Curiosity, as a coach, we always need to ask with curiosity, so the intention, like it links back to the intention, and building trust is very important, so that we are able to ask questions which are more clarifying, questions which probe them, questions which invite them to expand the possibilities. So for them to open up and to be vulnerable enough with us as coaches, we need to create the trust. So it is linked to the art of asking questions. The other thing is, when we're asking questions, it's not only the verbal answers that we should be focusing on before we frame the next question. It's also sometimes, not all the times, because I know Captain say you can't trust the body language all the time, but sometimes it is important. Okay, so that's what Neo had experienced when, training the deaf persons, the body language, the way their lips move, the expression, everything is important. You can ask why, and sometimes leading questions are justified, okay, when you need to seek more clarification, or you need to ground the coachee on on things why they need to do, to ground the objective, and also to seek assurance or confirmation or reinforce whatever they were saying. How do we create a culture to ask more questions? Is to create a safe space. That means, then also means in our conversation to always invite asking question as part of a conversation. Conversation is just not the exchange of two opinions or views, or just responding to an answer, but also questions should be part of conversation, and also acknowledging questions, no matter how trivial it may sound, but acknowledging every question so that people feel empowered to ask questions. The masteries that are used, actually all the 9 masteries come into play. If you see, when you want to formulate a question, all 9 masteries need to come into play. And also our panelists shared what are some of the things that they refrained or they kept away from asking, is not to ask on politics or on gender or race or religion, anything that is sensitive. So again, it also depends on the context, I believe, but these are generally things that they do not ask. Practice. Don't be so hard on yourself. Self-compassion is very important. Practice asking questions. Do not judge yourself when you're asking the questions. Encourage yourself, empower yourself to ask questions, and always do better from whatever that you've gone through. And also continuous learning. It is always, always, always encouraged to continue to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn. So this has been basically what are some of the gems that we got out of a conversation today. So Zubin, are we ready for the questions?
Yes, so we had one question earlier from Aishwarya, but before we go into that, just a couple of clarification points. Vinny mentioned the 9 masteries. That is something under the International Association of Coaching. It's part of a module. So for those of you who have not been a certified coach who are joining us today, this is something you can take the opportunity to learn or even look up online if you wish to. And she also, a lot of people in the conversation kept mentioning captain. So the captain here that's being referred to is none other than Captain Shan, who is the host of this session, president of the International Association of Coaching Global. And we're very honored to have him with us here today. So he has trained many of them, which is why the word captain keeps coming up. All right, just for the benefit of our audience members who may not understand or know. And now we've got a couple of questions in the front. One, Aishu had a question earlier, which is, she finds it challenging not to tell people what to do. There's a situation where she is right now holding off on talking to or having a coaching session with a colleague because she knows she will end up telling that colleague what to do. And she needs to be ready first for that coaching session. So it's really difficult because there's an issue of breaking rules too many times by this individual, and a certain level of patience is required. Do any of y'all have any advice for her on what she can do with this?
Analysts?
Get another coach.
I think even Captain mentioned, as a leader, we wear different hats. So being aware of what hat is necessary in that conversation is important. And just telling them that, hey, at this moment, it's not a coaching conversation. I want to understand before we progress is probably the best way to go about it, because we can't always wear a coach's hat all the time.
Yeah, just add on, I think sometimes it doesn't mean we have to take up every coaching. So I would say that if I'm not the right person for you, I have a group of coaches here, there are how many of us, 30 over here, who, I'll probably say, I would recommend you to some coaches that I think can help you. So that's how I will approach it.
Okay.
Cool. We have another interesting question then. So Veni, this question is, do you have any tips for handling moments where your question may trigger an unexpected reaction? For example, crying. This question comes from Carissa.
Okay. Who wants to take that on? Anyone had any crying coaches, and how did you handle it?
I can try. Many years ago, had a crying staff. But maybe me being a guy, biological being a guy, kind of a little bit numb. I wouldn't say I'm not 100% numb, but I say that it doesn't really affect me that deeply. But I actually break up the session. I ask the coachee to maybe go outside and then get a drink, or maybe calm herself down. So we will resume it at the time that she's more appropriate. So I didn't set the next session, when is it to be, but I let her to have the freedom to choose the next timing, because I don't feel that at a very particular point of time is actually appropriate for me to continue further on, because it can also may affect me as a coach later on when she keep on crying.
True.
So this is some of my point.
True. I've gone through the situation actually, where my coachee started crying, and that actually got contagious, It just made me also emotional, and I did exactly what he did. I said, okay, come, let's just stop. And it was just not even 10 minutes into the session. So we actually stopped. And we went back, and I did exactly what you said, Teo. I told her, you get back to me when you're ready to talk about this again. Yeah, so I didn't pressure, tomorrow I need to do this with you. So yeah, that's breaking up. Right.
All right.
Yes, Zubin?
So actually, I've closed off the questions for now.
Okay.
And I would like to frame one more question. So there were two people who asked this, and I'll try to frame it as best as I can. So Gurit and Mohan have asked, all right, how do you handle a coachee who says, I don't know, that's why I've come to you. I need advice, not more questions. And Mohan said that this has happened where it ends up being a consultation session because the coachee keeps saying, yes, that I don't know. Can you please guide me? So,
hey, who wants to take that
how can
on?
you turn it around to a coaching session again, guys? What do you do with these questions? Tough one.
Can I try?
yes, try.
Okay.
There used to be a wise guy that used to tell me this. This person might not be coachable. And number two, there is another wise guy that says this. I need to direct you to a coach that is wearing the hat that you're looking for.
Okay, good one. Yeah, exactly. I think that also would be an appropriate thing. Okay, you need to talk to somebody else, not to claim that, we are not supposed to solve anybody's problem or come up with answers. So as coaches, we only open up avenues and they have the answers, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I think also yeah, I've also, you know, what Captain used to tell us, ask them, what would you do if you knew?
Yeah.
And even after I asked that question, still, I don't know. That's why I'm here. And so what helped in that situation for me was, okay, what was a similar situation you have been in before? And what did you do then? So got them to reflect and bring that experience into, so what would you like to do now in this situation, which may be similar, or it might require something completely different. So acknowledging what they've done in the past in a similar situation, helping them to see that they have solved this problem before or a similar problem, and then looking at what can I do now moving forward that maybe I can learn from my past experience, or I want to try something completely new.
Okay. Any other observation? That's it?
Yep, I think actually it's
And then-
already 12:02 p.m. and we
All
don't
right.
want to hold anyone back further, but that's all the questions that we've had as well from the audience members.
Okay.
You can quickly wrap it up, Benny, and then I
Right.
will just end the session.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. First, I'd like to extend our gratitude to all 4 panelists. Mr. Tan Kenon, Mr. Teo Hock Lam, Mr. Neo, and Miss Kathleen. Thank you so much for sharing. And ladies and gentlemen, all 33 of you who, you know, freed up your time and joined in here and also shared your ideas. Thank you so much. And thank you to the KL IAC chapter, guys. Thank you so much for making this possible. And definitely thank you to you, Zubin, for working so hard behind the scenes, making all this possible. Thank you, Captain, for keep on guiding and giving us all the motivation. And before we end our session, we want to take a group picture. So please, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, get your videos on, and we're going to take a group picture, and we will be meeting up for next chapter forums. We will keep all of you informed when will be the next forum. Okay, so before we sign off, let's do a group picture.